So how did you get into scouting?
I got back into it when I came back. Actually, it was down at Hawk Mountain. Before my boys were old enough, I helped down at Hawk Mountain because I used to hunt down there. And I got to know the rangers, so I started working on cabins down there with them. And then when my boys got old enough, they wanted to join the Cub Scouts, and it was all over from there.
Were you a Boy Scout?
Yes.
And what rank did you attain?
I actually got life.
Okay.
At Troop 11 at St. Mary's.
Okay. Do I understand correctly that maybe there was a lease with the Bordner cabin? Was that associated with your troop?
No, it was actually associated with the Boy Scouts through Doug. Doug had it signed that we could use it for X amount of years. And then we got a group, actually Bear Hernley. Dave Hernley is his full name, they called him Bear. He really kicked the ball rolling. And we went out a couple times. Bear started on his own. When we went out there originally, everything around the cabin was grown in. When you go out there now, you have a walkway right outside the door. Well, that was all backfill and old logs, all the way out to the creek bed. My troop went out. There was Travis and Zachary Davis and his father, and it was myself, Bear Hernley, Rob Rebb, and we started clearing all that out, all the way over to the horse building, where that was all getting ready to cave in. And we used to have work parties over the weekend, and we'd pull all the garbage, and there was a lot of garbage out. Dave got permission to get rid of the garbage, so we filled all the bags and got all that out. And while I was there, I remember we were cleaning the inside of the cabin first, and we realized that between the logs was the old horsehair chinking. And I'd never forget it, because we cleaned it from top to bottom, and at that time, the hearth was missing. And I mentioned went to a troop meeting, and there was a gentleman there, and we were talking about, I wish I knew where this hearth was, because it was a half a log cut. It was an old chestnut log that Armor actually had honed and put into the cement and built the fireplace around. About 2 weekends later, he brought this into the troop room. Here, he knew the guy that went in there. They got permission from Armor's daughter to take it out, because they cleaned the cabin out.
Somebody stole the hearth, and we had to go back and remake it. Unbelievable.
That's actually a piece of the chestnut that was made to the house.
That's twice that hearth went missing. So what are some of your best memories of the cabin?
The best memories, a gentleman that I got to know was Eddie Rare Jr. We needed the logs. The actual trees that were helped in building the cabin were located out the big picture windows. It was maybe 4 inches from the wall one way and about 9 inches from the other in that little corner. And Dave Hernley was worried about getting it cut, because depending which way it would kick, it could go through the wall. So Eddie Rare, his dad and his grandfather are very prevalent in Lebanon County history. They're over Manada Gap Way at the end of the gap, and they're always known for loggers. He went in there and he looked at that. That had to be about 2.5 foot in diameter. And the other tree that was helped for the hoist at the top, where they put the cinches and stuff in, was growing through the roof. There's like, if you look up there now, there's like a ridge cut. Well, that tree was actually pushing the roof in. And the neat thing was, Eddie, when we asked him, he said, I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna throw the hat down where I'm gonna get it, where it's gonna fall. And he come back, he said, it's gonna hit that tree, hit that one, it's gonna fall right on the hat. And I said, well, how are you gonna do that? Because that was across the creek. And he said, well, what I'm gonna do is make the log jump. And we kind of laughed at him. Well, Eddie got up there and he was cutting it, and I had to hit he used triangle pegs to pressure it up. The way he cut it, he put pressure on the backside. I hit him with a sledgehammer, then he cut more, then he cut wedges and put them in the backside. When he hit that, it actually popped up away from the building, came down, and laid straight across, exactly like he said. It was only maybe about 12 inches away from his hat. That's the log that we cut in half and made the bridge.
And they took the bridge too.
Yeah.
How sad.
And that bridge was neat because it was developed that you could go over. There was a lot of deadfalls. So the kids, we had a plan that the kids that would stay there would eventually clean the place up by burning the logs, burning the old deadfall. And that was a constant back and forth. And it's a shame that they got rid of it. But the other tree, I'll never forget, because I was afraid he was going to get pinned in against the building. He cut that down, and it laid right over. And that we used for, there were some people came and took slabs out, but we hauled that all by hand. I used to take my troop there in the wintertime, because I used to love putting the floodlights on the waterfall when it was freezing. And we had made up our Thanksgiving dinners there. Another gentleman, Jimmy Ditzler, you might remember Jimmy.
I remember Jimmy Ditzler.
And we had a great time.
Approvals that we need. When that time comes, do you and your scouts have any interest in coming back and giving us a hand?
Oh yes, because where it's located, the history behind it, and even the foundation on what it was built on. And what I mean that is, not many people realize, but the American Chestnut is gone. That home is totally American Chestnut.
I am so glad to hear that, because I had no idea what kind of wood it was. That makes it extremely special if it's the chestnuts that were blighted.
Yes, it is. When we actually did the roof, because we had about 2 foot of matter, leaf and vegetation that was growing through the roof. We had to put tarps all around the bottom in the creek bed, and it was myself and Robert Redd, and Bear was on the ground to make sure nothing went in the creek. I mean, it was a hand, because we wouldn't let the kids up, they were too slippery. And we were peeling all that off by hand. And then we pulled all them blankets up and all the tarps with all the garbage. And then every weekend we'd go out there, and it was like a work weekend. We'd cook dinner, we'd work in the creek. Bear was always out there, he was living out there most of the time. And a lot of people don't realize there's 2 ponds there. We looked for years, and I'm not talking about 2-3 years, that we were working there. We opened up the old pipes that the water would run and fill the ponds up. It's a big historical fact back there.
Oh, yeah.
The far corner, it was leaking a little bit, and we had to watch the way we repaired it. It was not uncommon when you went in there, when we first went there was a black snake that actually lived underneath the stairway to get in the door. And we actually caught him on several occasions and moved him out, but he always moved back in. And he would really, we used to put eggs down in the wintertime in the basement to feed the black snake. If there were a lot of people in there, they had heat going, the snake would come back out, and then he fed off the eggs. But it was good to keep them there because they fed off the mice that came in. They were there for a purpose, like everything else God made. A lot of people don't realize that Armor had a volleyball field.
A what?
A volleyball field.
A volleyball field.
Yes, it was across the road. There's a clearing there.
Okay.
His family used to have picnics over there, and that's where they played volleyball. What I heard, the background information that we found out, he was a tech teacher.
Yes.
From Viking, from northern Lebanon, and he built everything by hand. And when you went in there and seen just the artisan craft work that was done, especially the stonemason work, there was actually flues put in the side of the
A natural draft.
to create the flow.
Yes.
And even water, a lot of people don't realize he didn't have hot and cold running water like everybody else did. It was maybe about 50 feet up the creek. He had a holding pond where he stuck a gravity-fed hose in there with a filter that came down through. Now, Bear found the old metal pipe, and we replaced it with a garden hose that worked for quite some time for us. And that's where we got all our water. And the only thing you had to worry about was salt in the wintertime coming off 81.
Yeah.
But the water was good to drink. As a kid, I remember sitting at Ben Wagner's property, which is across the street from the campgrounds.
Lickdale or Twin
no,
Grove? Twin Grove?
Twin Grove.
Okay.
And I remember sitting on his porch, looking up and watching them dynamite the road in for 81.
And what year was that?
That had to be early 70s.
Okay.
Up there, when you go to the old railroad tracks, PA history comes back again with Boy Scouts. There was an issue with the council, and a bunch of the older scouts got together and ran summer camp back there. And I hope you do get it done, because I don't want to see what happened to the Roush Gap Railroad Station happen to Armor Bordner, because it is a piece of history, and we don't know where we're going without knowing where we've been.